Good morning. I'm Tim Neubauer. Welcome to Safety Unlocked, the morning podcast, or affectionately known as your morning brew of safety knowledge.
And I am Dave Bittner. Today is Friday, April 4th, 2025.
On today's episode, we're going to be discussing the latest safety news as well as Brain Injury Awareness Month. It's nothing to joke about. Although my childhood boyish humor always pops out. Brain injuries, traumatic brain injuries are a very real thing in not only in civilian workplaces, but in the military as well.
Sure, and there's lots of different causes. So, we think of TBIs in the military, roadside bombs, things like that, things that go boom. But there are a lot of other sources. I mean, sports, for instance, they're finding out that even with helmets, that some of the sports cause long-term TBIs, small concussions, things of that nature. Then when you're a kid, and we were just talking about my brother this morning, going like holy heck down the street, down the hill of our street, in his wagon and smashing his head on a tree. And he had a severe concussion from that. I remember that, even though I'm 4 years younger than him. So
you baby. So we're going to spend more time talking about that, but we're going to talk about a kind of an interesting topic now. Dash cams, AI dash cams, are now available, coming out in commercial motor vehicles. And Dave, as you know, and our listeners may not have known, I recently upgraded to a 2025 pickup truck, and I was a little shocked that it has AI powered steering, and it drives on the road just like the battery powered vehicles like Tesla have it. This is a Ford that has that auto driving mode.
Why does that not surprise me that you did not know it has that? Tim goes into the deal. Me and my wife, we did research. We didn't know everything about that vehicle upside down. Tim's just like, does it have all the cool new stuff? Yes, it does. I'll take it.
You just buy the package.
Named it the Enterprise T, right?
So it's like if you are more interested in the sunroof and the moonroof, it's tied together with the premium sound system. So if you want a premium sound system off of a standard package, you're going to get the moonroof. So in this case, Dave, I went for the features I wanted, and then I found out there was a bunch of other stuff that just comes along with it, which was very interesting. So I picked up my car and I was driving my truck, and I was driving to Charlotte. And on the way down there, I went to go turn on my cruise control, and I got this thing that popped up, and it says, "Hey, you've got this feature. Would you like to do that?" And then, folks, if you've never done this, taking your hands off the steering wheel, going around curves, up and down hills at 70 miles an hour, it's scary that the car is doing this. And I also
don't know if I have that much trust.
Rolling up on 60 years old, and I got my license on my 16th birthday, I found out that what I think is the center lane, my truck says, no, you're not. You're too far to the left. 44 years of driving, I've always been a left-hand hugger for some reason. I didn't know that, but because it forever corrects me. And the point I want to get to is going to bring back up is it actually looks inward too. So if I look down to change the radio station, or I look down for where I dropped my my cookie that I shouldn't be eating in my new truck, it says keep your eyes on the road, and it starts shaking and give me all this feedback that I need to be paying attention. And these AI powered dash cams are arriving in the trucking industry. Dash cams have transformed road safety and fleet management through advanced computer technology. These smart devices are actually looking inward now to make sure the drivers are awake and cognitive as well as outward facing, looking at, is your following distance correct? Are you in your lane correct? If you're drifting off to the side. So the question is this a good use of AI to augment the drivers in these large commercial vehicles, Dave?
Opinion?
Yes.
I think it can be. I think it really can be because this is definitely um, a huge topic amongst drivers, and when they're driving, say that they're driving a big semi and they fall asleep. This isn't just it's catastrophic for anybody in the vehicle, but it can be catastrophic for a lot of people if one of those crash. If they're not keeping up with their DOT logs and they're falling asleep, or they just haven't gotten enough sleep and they're on a long haul, yeah, I think it can be, and I think there should be like a red alert, like the Enterprise,
The
that wakes
sheets
them up
shake,
too. But
the seat shakes, the steering wheel shakes. There are tones, buzzers, and your dash. Everything goes off. I mean, it is very impactful for you. But I get it, Dave. I mean, we're privacy is an issue now. In our company vehicles, I made the decision. We have dash cams, and the dash cams are not inward facing. They're front and rear window. I chose not to get the models with the in cab look, but they record audio. But we actually went in and turned off the audio because I don't want to accidentally record unintentionally. I shouldn't say accidentally, unintentionally record your private conversation with your spouse, your significant other, or both of them back to
he
back.
doesn't want to hear us sing. Come on, Tim.
Yeah. So I can get that there's
I
that
don't want to hear me sing either.
I can get that there's a concern with that. Plus, the outward facing cameras are actually recording people who may not want to be recorded. Now, we always joke around saying, "Man, when that guy cut me off and made a 7-lane change without a blinker, we're going to roll that tape back and put it on the internet for shaming." But that person didn't consent to that. Plus, there's also the risk of data breaches, which is somebody could go in there and see where you are when you are. So I get that there's some privacy concerns right there, but does the good outweigh the loss of privilege?
I think if it is clear as a condition of employment in a commercial vehicle, I don't think it's a bad thing. If you choose not to read it, just like any other contract, that's on you. But if it's a condition of employment, especially for these large vehicles, I mean, like I said, any vehicle can be dangerous, but the large vehicles, the tankers, the 53-foot trailers, things like that. I'm not against it. I'm not opposed to it. I look at all that stuff with a skeptical eye.
High value loads, weapons, munitions, explosives, money, those kind of gold, those kind of shipments. Absolutely. It's going to be really interesting how this shakes out because dash cams are around. We have them. I've known people have had them for years. But I also remember the glasses that had the cameras built in, and everybody
Yeah,
thought it was really cool. Then it became really creepy, and then you can't do that anymore.
yeah. The
So,
Google Glass, I think they were. They
yeah,
came out
yeah.
with another version, by the way. But
Yeah. So they kind of like fell off to the wayside and that. And I
mhm.
know that I have the ring cameras and video surveillance and that stuff like that. So it's kind of it's a give and take over here. And I see a lot of positive to the AI camera being able to slow your vehicle down or alert you. One of my features I like a lot about the new technology is if your cruise control is set to 70, the speed limit, and traffic slows down to 62, that truck knows that I want a 5 car distance between me and the car in front of me, and it will slow down to 62 automatically. And then when that traffic clears up, it will reaccelerate up from there. It's in the blind spot, knowing that there's a car there. I see a lot of positive on this. Um,
I have to tell you, I do too. I mean, we have it on our company vehicles, or at company SUVs, and having that blind spot sensor, it's pretty awesome. You know that you give enough room to the other vehicle. You're not being that rude person. You're not taking unnecessary risks. It gives you a good envelope. And the same thing with the cruise control and the distance control and things of that nature. And sometimes you have to fight yourself. Uh, I hate to tell you, but that sensor knows better than you do. It is programmed to say this is your reaction time at this distance.
Yep.
And it's true, you're not faster than Bruce Lee, so your foot's not moving that fast. I think it's almost an entire second from gas pedal to brake.
That's if you're paying attention in good physical and mental conditioning. If you are worried about problems at home, your wife ran away with your best friend and took your dog, and you love that dog, your reaction time is slowed. That is a joke that is probably 30 years old, more than 30 years old for me. Yeah, it's your reaction times are you're distracted. If you're not in good health, I just sneezed a minute ago. That would slow your reaction time down. If your car's not considering any of that, it's just reacting. So
Sure.
So,
A
well,
lot
it's
to
again,
unpack there, right?
yeah, it's going to be interesting. Next up in the safety news, 3 workers were injured in a scaffold collapse in Pasadena, Texas. A collapse led to a 25-foot drop that caused the incident to happen. It's still under investigation. It happened a couple weeks ago. One of the people were airlifted by life flight, serious injuries. The other 2 were taken to ambulance with non-life threatening ones. We all hate to hear stories like this, especially when it's something that could have been prevented.
They're very
Scaffold is one of
fortunate
my,
actually to even be alive.
yeah, 25 foot's a big one. Um, as a scaffold guy, and that's how I started my safety career. I'm a scaffold guy through and through. It's still my shiny object. Scaffold has to be cannot be erected, moved, altered, or dismantled without a competent person. And a lot of times the competent person is just designated and may not have the skills, or they are more concerned with productivity than they are um, with the safety of the scaffold. And then they have that sliding scale of acceptable risk and danger. And again, we don't know what's happened here. And it's I always hate when I call them the safety snipers come out and they read this headline and they say they weren't inspected or it was overloaded. We have no idea at this point. The investigation is still ongoing, but we do know that it collapsed and 3 people were hurt. So we always look to training. We look to inspection. Did they have fault protection? Now, if this was a swing stage, and again, we don't know, did they have ulterior fault protection or was this fixed scaffold? And if it collapsed, was it overloaded? All these things come into play right over here. But it's going to come back down to we're going to be looking for the people being properly trained. And remember, you can't train too much for a job that can kill you. Did they know what the capacity was? Did they know, was it inspected? Was it properly erected? These are all questions to ask, but it comes right down to, did the people know the hazard existed? And that's going to come back down to training, training, training. Thoughts on that, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, look at one of the most revealed things in an OSHA investigation of an incident is lack of training. So, I mean, it's critical. I mean, it's not just putting a bunch of tubes together and going, oh, tube platform, ready, go. There's a lot more to know than that. When you're putting anchors and it's like, how old is the concrete? Is it cured yet? Are you putting them at the right spaces? Do you have the right planks? You're not mixing parts. There's so many different things to know. And that's why you need that competent person to go, this is how we build a scaffold, and let's do it the right way and take your time. Sills, under the sills, under the feet. You see people put all kinds of crazy stuff. Just go on the internet and look at crazy scaffold pictures, and I'm sure you're going to see some really off the wall things propping scaffolding up. And the taller that thing gets, the more likely it is to tip if it's not erected right.
Every Friday on our social media, we have a flashback or a funny Friday. And I've had to instruct the people who manage that for us to not make it 100% scaffold, go other places, because there is just a plethora, an abundance of those videos out there. Plus, we actually have a scaffold series out there where we talk about stuff, and that prompted. If you've ever made internet content, folks, there's the snipers, the people who will never
They're called trolls, Tim.
trolls. Like, well, they're
On the
snipers.
internet.
So I made a video out of all of our safety moment videos that are out there, and there's literally hundreds, if not up to thousands now, of these little 60 to 90-second little things, and I made probably about 50 of them on scaffold, but one of them is on rigging, and the topic is don't saddle a dead horse. Okay, and it talks about when you put a U-bolt on a on a steel cable, you put it on a certain way, folks. I'm not going to get into the minutia of this, okay? But in 90 seconds, I had to explain in layman's terms why you don't do that, okay? And the right way to put it on. And that there is an option that they have one that is universal called the J clip that you can't put on backwards, okay? So I have 90 seconds. And I always like to say those safety moments are elementary school. They're not master's level 90-second blurbs. It takes a lot more to get into detail. And lately, that one has been gaining a lot of traction, a lot of viewing, and they're all the internet trolls, as Dave said. I call them snipers. Saying, but you didn't explain that the tensile strength of the steel cable has wrapped around the wire core, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, I got 90 seconds to explain. Put the clip on one way, not the other way.
Right, and it's for the end user. It's not for the safety guy, or it just becomes an echo chamber, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We're here to educate the average worker. Not saying that all workers are average, but we're here to educate everyone. If you're a safety professional, it's incumbent upon you to educate yourself and get your education. But thanks for your input.
Yeah, and I know that it's a challenge because and I don't go to the job sites very much anymore. Dave, you spent a thrilling 3 or 4 days out last week on a job site. How many times you walk up to a bunch of iron workers who are putting in a guardrail and half the clips are on backwards?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, the job site I went on, I checked them and they did very well.
See, that's because they're a long-term
horses
client of ours, and we beat them up on that too many times. So. Okay. So they don't have traumatic brain injuries because they don't fall because their clips are incorrectly. But our main topic today is this month, March, is Brain Injury Association of America, the BIAA, Brain Injury Awareness Month. At least 64 million adults report having received one or more traumatic brain injuries in their lifetime. A traumatic brain injury, or a TBI, occurs when you have an external force come in contact with your head, striking your head against something or something hitting your head, a fall, motor vehicle collision, assault, anything along that line. A concussion is sometimes referred to as a mild traumatic brain injury, or an MTBI. Those aren't life-threatening in most cases. A concussion is caused by a bump, jolt, or a blow to the head that causes the brain to bounce around and twist in the skull. Although these are referred to as mild, they are not necessarily mild injuries to the brain in terms of their symptoms or the impact on the survivor. There's also instances of non-traumatic brain injury, usually caused by internal factors such as lack of oxygen, exposure to toxins, and pressure from a tumor. When it comes to safety, brain injuries are absolutely something we want to prevent, and we can do this by taking precautions in our day-to-day work. Before we get into the thoughts, I wanted to bring one up. Lately, along the East Coast, and several large GCs have been requiring the I'll call them the spelunker, or the bicycle helmet style hard hats with the chin straps. There's no OSHA review going on, to my knowledge, that they're going to change the rule. But a lot of these GCs are being proactive, saying, hey, TBIs are caused during falls when your head hits the ground. If you had your hard hat still on your head, we could reduce or eliminate that potential for that. Dave, what are your thoughts on the helmet style hard hats?
I always say when they're off, they look like Star Wars, and when they're on, they look like Spaceballs. But uh,
I resemble that
um,
remark.
yeah, exactly. For those of you who don't know, Tim was an extra in Spaceballs.
As a
So
stormtrooper,
go look for Tim.
combing the desert.
Anyway, I digress. I think it's just like anything, you're a little reluctant to change, but I think it's a good thing. I think the chin strap thing is a good thing. Look, it eliminates having to have a tether, right? For your hard hat, you need to still tether your tools, folks.
Stop
Snipers
the
and
drop.
trolls.
Yep.
But yeah, I think and it leaves it on your head. And Tim did a recent investigation where unfortunately it went badly because someone did not have that type of hard hat on, or that would be the supposition. So I think in the end, I think it's going to be a good thing. We're all a little resistant at first. And yeah, the chin strap's a little uncomfortable. But look, um, nobody wanted to wear their seatbelt when the seatbelt laws were new. And you will hear me repeat that over and over again because I think it's the best example. You weren't late because you put your seatbelt on. You weren't that uncomfortable because you put your seatbelt on. Although I think it does give you holes in your t-shirt. Um, but yeah, I mean that's my take on that. Uh, as far as the spelunker style helmets go, Tim, what do you think about them? You've worn them.
I am, and being a business owner, one of my biggest complaints is that those things are well over $100, and if you want to trick them out for the cool kids, you're going to be spending $200 on them, and you have a crew of 100 people. That is a lot of damn money. But the prices are coming down, and options are becoming more plentiful. So I'm for them. I see challenges. People are going to argue that chin strap is a choke hazard, but they actually have breaking points on them, and other things. I'm a proponent for them. I have not, in full disclosure, um, I have not mandated them for our company yet. That day may come, and it seems to be East Coast and contractor centric requirements. So we do have them, and I have one that sits in my truck when I do go to those job sites. So
Well, it's not
um,
like there's no education out there because look, we have the NFL. If you look at the NFL and their helmets and how much they've changed, and you
yep,
look at things like NASCAR and their helmets and how much they've changed, there's technologies out there that are definitely better, and I think they're incorporating some of that into these style hard hats now. And I mean the argument's there. They've
yeah,
got to be better. They've got to be better than the old style.
absolutely. I will give you a plus on mine because I wear prescription glasses, and it's really hard to wear prescription. They don't make prescription safety glasses that are tinted. So you are forever wearing like a wear over set when you're working outside. And my helmet style one actually has the Star Wars face
Visor.
shield, the drop visor that drops on there, so I don't have to worry about that, and it's actually kind of cool. I dig it. Um, so you should be wearing your hard hat even if you're inside of a piece of heavy equipment or operating a forklift. And they say, "Well, I've got the overhead guard." That's for big objects. That's not for head bumps. So even though you have cages and heavy equipment, wearing that personal protective equipment can be a good thing, especially wearing your PPE can protect during a fall. It's struck by or striking against. You don't know when explosions or blasts are going to happen. So having that PPE on. Um, Once you actually get an injury, though, you want to definitely go see a doctor, a medical professional, and get evaluated. And there is an entire recovery process. Your headache doesn't go away in an hour, and you go back to work. That injury could take a significant amount of time
Yeah, if you
to
got a
recover
headache
from.
or blurred vision or feel nauseous or anything, you need to get checked. If you got a bump on your head, that's actually kind of a positive sign. But if you got a dent, that's a medical emergency.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm not saying ignore either one, but if it's an innie and not an outie, that is a medical emergency. If there is any if there is any fluid coming from the nose or ear, here I am, my first aid CPR instructor again. Yeah, you need to seek medical attention right away.
Right. So when they do come back to work, do we want to give them rest breaks, shorten work schedule, later start time? Take the time to take short walks with other similar light physical activity just to keep yourself moving. Look for tasking that doesn't put you in a position to re-injure yourself or aggravate it. Sunglasses, hearing protection, to reduce outside stimulation, reduce driving or physical activity. Give them more time to complete tasks, reduce computer screen time, and use assistive technology to help perform tasks like screen reading or magnification. Don't read the book, have a book read to you. So, all right.
Audiobooks.
Yes. All right. Well, that about wraps up our time here. Do we have anything new or interesting? Do we have a national day for today? Do we have one that's interesting, or are they all boring?
I did not actually look at the National Day, but I do have another interesting thing about kind of related to TBI. So I was listening to another podcast, which was not a safety podcast, but it was informative, and there was a SpaceX astronaut on there, and he brought up an interesting thing I did not know about space travel is that you can suffer headaches after space travel because your brain actually floats in your skull and can touch your skull. And I'm like, well, that kind of freaks me out. You know, as a kid, I always wanted to go to space, but after listening to that guy, it's like, yeah, maybe not.
Awesome. I did not know that. No chance of me going to space, though. So.
Yeah, well, you know, I space out, but that's.
I was going to say we both do that.
So I did not know it. Well, you know, we got the internet. We should probably take a look real quick, just for the edification of our listeners. What is
while you're looking that up, Dave? If you have a safety question or you've got a hot button topic you'd like us to discuss, just reach out to us at info@exceedsafety.com. We'll be happy to try and address those. Or if you have any funny stories or things like that you'd like to share, we'd love to hear from you and give you some of our airtime and spread our wealth of knowledge out to a wider audience. So pretty easy to do. You can click on the link on the podcast you're listening to, or reach out our website, exceedsafety.com, and we'd love to hear from you on that. So,
here we go. We got one for our Chicago folks. On Saturday, National Deep Dish Pizza. And tomorrow, or today, I should say, Tim, today is National Picky Eaters Day.
Yay.
There it is. There it is.
Yay.
That's the important one. This again, we're, you know, just for
on that note, this wraps up this episode of Safety Unlocked, the morning podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the morning show wherever you get your podcast and follow us on social media. You can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube at Exceed Safety. Again, if you have a safety question, send it our way. We might feature you in our next episode. I'm Tim Neubauer.
And I'm Dave Bittner. Remember, safety is everybody's business. Make it a safe day.
You have been listening to Safety Unlocked, the morning show, a podcast for safety people by safety people, brought to you by Exceed Safety, a full spectrum consulting firm. Visit our website at exceedsafety.com or call us at 919-728-SAFE.
Exceed Safety LLC.